I used to wait outside people's houses to chat to them. I'm not even joking. Like I did that with Kenny Kunene as well. So I ended up starting up a clothing company in the Northwest. I waited outside his home for 3 hours until he got home. Back then he was doing So What on ETV.
Hey, Bulelani Balabala here. Welcome to the Small Business Podcast. We bring you weekly information, practical skills, and mentorship from industry professionals. This podcast is powered by T, an initiative that has directly impacted over 50,000 plus small businesses nationwide. This podcast is for small business owners who want to start, run, and grow their business. Follow us on all our social media platforms. #JoinUs4T. Every Wednesday is a new podcast. Good day, man. Good day, good evening, good afternoon, depending where you are in the world watching, listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for joining and listening to the Small Business Podcast. This is episode number 13. And I mean, I've got no better and amazing gent to have in studio than this amazing guy. I mean, he's an author, he's an entrepreneur, he's a business leader, a disruptor, Pan-Africanist in every single word, and a global state of mind entrepreneur. And we'd like to thank you. I think yet again, man, I mean, we'd like to thank you guys for listening to the podcast. And if you're listening to this in the comment section, just tell us where you're listening from, what your business does, who you are, and yeah, just keep engaging throughout the podcast. So I've got an amazing gent in studio, looks good, GQ best dressed, and he's gotten those accolades, so I'm not even making them up. But I think over and above that, a very humble and amazing guy who's who's done extremely well for himself. He sits on amazing boards. We've got none other than Mr. Zareef Minty, an entrepreneur, author, speaker, disruptor. How you doing, bro?
Wow, bro, I appreciate that intro. Hey, it's such a good intro. Thank you so much.
Man, I think it's actually too short considering all you've done.
Nah.
Because I think if we rolled it out, there wouldn't even be enough room to sort of encapsulate. But I think for me, I can't jump into this interview without unpacking, I think, where I met you and how. But first, I think by way of introduction to guests out there, Zareef is in the studio. Who's Zareef?
Awesome. Okay, sure. So I'm 28 years old. I made the Forbes 30 under 30 list. Yeah. I've been on One Day Leader. Actually ended up winning season 4 of SABC One's One Day Leader. I'm a best-selling author. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a speaker. But most importantly, I really strongly believe in youth development and youth empowerment in South Africa and Africa. So yeah, I think that just sums up a little bit of some of the stuff I believe in.
And I think for me, so I guess needless to say, the person who sort of created the conduit for us to meet is DJ Spoo. But over and above that, so your work had always been coming up. I mean, we've done a lot, but
we've known each other for a while, bro. It's been a while.
But I think for me, the biggest thing that has consistently peaked out for me, right, over the years. I mean, I'm 34, you 28. And I'm like, sure. And I think when we met, I was like, dude, this guy, I think you were 18? Or something. No. How old
it was a good 10 or 11 years ago.
It was a long time ago, and you were doing stuff. And then you had the book come out, right? And I was like, sure, this guy is killing it, right? But where does that come from, right? That tenacity to say, at the time, as young as I am, I'm gonna author this thing, and I'm gonna share my ideologies of what the right sort of mindset is.
Yeah, I think for me it's a very tricky one, and it's something that a lot of people can relate to. Is that not everyone grows up in Sandton or in Clifton in Cape Town, where you have high profile people around you all the time, and business is nearby, corporates are nearby. Like I grew up in the Northwest. I grew up on a farm town. Like in the Northwest, Clarksdorp was my home. Everyone there believes in the system. The system is you're born, you go through school, you get married, you have kids, and the system continues. And that's it. People were happy. People are happy with living that system. No one's too ambitious. No one's trying to, develop new things. No one's being innovative. So I always looked at that, and I always felt like that's not what I want. I never want to be in that space. Your mindset is so important. And ever since I was young, I used to go to these Robert Kiyosaki events. And that's what actually built my mindset. And I always thought, if you want to be around, if you want to become a multi-millionaire, you have to be surrounded by people who have that same mindset. Even if they're not there yet, you have to be around people who think that way. So what I did is every single time while I was still at school, from grade 10 onwards, actually grade 9, I used to come to Johannesburg every single weekend, bro. And I used to spend time networking as much as I can with celebrities, business people. I used to wait outside people's houses to chat to them. I'm not even joking. Like, I did that with Kenny Kunene as well. So I ended up like starting up a clothing company in the Northwest. I waited outside his home for like 3 hours until he got home. Back then he was doing So What on ETV and all of these things, and I literally forced him to take those t-shirts from me. And then a few weeks later, when his next promo came out on ETV, it was him wearing all of my t-shirts, and that just opened up doors for me. And then corporate started calling, saying, like, can we get you on our vendors list? You're a young guy, and that opened up doors for me, bro. And then also I started to meet a lot of the media people as well. So your mindset grows as you're around the right type of people. And I really believe that. I think if you associate yourself with like-minded people who understand growth and understand ambition, it's very unlikely that you're going to be left behind. It really works on that whole barbershop quote that comes into play. If you hang around a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. Yeah.
But now, I think what you mentioned right here is something I could definitely attest to. He's very good at networking. But I think why? I think for the most part is, and I know that you're good at it, right? But why? What was the thinking around, I need to network with these guys? And I ask this from the vantage point that says, in most cases, you sort of think it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's going to yield nothing. Why go to this guy's house and sit there for 3 hours? Because I think unpacking why you did that, right, would sort of help and I think sort of help droplets to anyone who's watching and listening to this podcast in terms of why you should also be considering this. I mean, some of the stuff you talk about is stuff that I've done, but I've also seen you maneuver in spaces and doing what you're doing now. And it's something that I can attest to, but why do you continue doing it, right? And what was the initial driver in the beginning?
I think it's always been that whole concept of like your network determines your net worth. And I've always believed that, and I've also seen, like, as much as we look at South African people, sometimes we're still a lot far behind everyone in the US, and back then we were very far behind. Now at least the it's more equal in that sense. But if you look at the guys in the US, and especially when I was younger, when I was 16, 15, I used to watch a lot of these guys, even on YouTube. I used to watch them on these different platforms, and you see that persistence really gets you somewhere, and it can get you big very quickly. But it's all about power of association. So if you have the right power of association, instead of having to knock on 100 doors, you knock on one. And it comes down to that whole concept. It's like people associate themselves with people who they associate themselves with. So if you know that you have mutual friends and they have high quality, it's very easy for you to be able to do business with someone. It's very easy for you to start up a communication channel. So it comes down to stuff like that. I think your network is literally your net worth, and at the end of the day, if you have good power of association, and if you associated yourself with the right, correct people, and you get the right mentors, and you get the right people in your community and in your audience, it opens up doors for you that it would have maybe taken you 5 years to open up if you didn't have that, and I really believe in that concept.
And, I think for me, what I found particularly interesting with your journey is you did all of this, and you've been doing all of this while studying at the same time towards your law degree.
Yeah.
And it's like, this guy's doing...
I don't think I'm a good role model for that, bro.
No, but in any case, for me, it's you. So you did that.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest part of what you do in that space is that you never back down from a fight.
Yeah.
And which is why it's like, hey, what you're working on, dude, I'm working on this. I'm doing it this way. I'm doing it this way. Dude, what you're working on, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing it that way, right? But now, in sort of unpacking part of the power of networking, right? I've also seen how you've utilized media in a very powerful way, right? How important is it, right? Because sometimes, so there are these conversations and dialogues that say, nah, but why get to the media? I'll use them when I'm at, I guess, in a Mr. Colin Mashawana's level, or when I'm at whosoever's level. Why do it now, right? I'm still too small, right? Then I'm trying to be someone I'm not, or whatever the case is. What is your thinking around that? on the power of it.
So I think before we get to this, I just want to make a disclaimer for what I just said now. So at university, I was that kid that would probably be at university maybe for 2 hours a week. I was part of the law students council, so I would walk in, get in the office, do some law work for the office and leave. You know, I would never attend a lecture, didn't know my lecturers, nothing. So I don't think I'm the perfect example to emphasize that.
Yeah.
But because I studied law, it allowed you to, it's a lot about like self-reading. You self-read a lot. It's a lot of preparation at home. So you don't necessarily have to be in classes like you're studying accounting or something else where it follows through, So I think, for me, it's very important that people understand that you don't have to follow a certain process. You don't have to get done with school and then go to university and then spend 2 years in corporate and then only decide, oh, now I can open up a business. Those days are gone. People are starting up businesses while they're still in school. People are starting up businesses while they're studying at university. And you don't have to follow the normal formula of doing that. So I think I'm one of those examples who didn't follow the formula. But at the end of the day, I still got my law degree. I'm still established as an attorney, but I opened up businesses while I was still in my law degree, which is a very important thing for me,
So before you even ask this question, I want to break process, right?
Yeah.
How? Because you're this dude comes from this farming town. Here you are now in this space. You like this space. You're chasing all of these ambitions, right? What did it take for you to start changing that psyche and thinking? Because most of what we do is driven by what we were taught, what we have read, what we have experienced.
Yeah.
What did it take to start changing that and start determining and deciding that this is going to be my new process? I'm working myself out of the standardized system, but this is going to be my new system.
I think it's just looking at blueprints from other people that have become successful. And I think it literally is that. I looked at mentors. I looked at other people that are successful that I might not have access to. And I just followed their blueprint. And I looked at, they don't actually... Time is the most valuable thing in the world. Let's be honest, right? If you can utilize your time where you can complete a law degree and still open up businesses and make it efficient, then you've actually saved yourself at least 3 or 4 years of your process. So I believe in that concept. I really believe in it. So I looked at a lot of mentors, and a lot of my mentors actually have the same blueprint. They believe in diversification of effort, and that's very, very important for them. So I just copied the same model, replicated it, and it's been helpful. I think it's really good, Yeah.
Now, how important, and I guess then I will go to this question, how important is for an entrepreneur to know how to work media?
Yeah, we're going to speak about the media thing, so I didn't get to it.
Is it even actually, the right question is it even anything I need to be considering in terms of how to work the media?
Yes, I think it's very important. So for me, it was more than... So okay, you have to look at it in two different aspects, right? So there's the personal branding aspect of it, and then there's whether you have a business associated with the media. So for example, I own a public relations company and a marketing company. There's a lot of value in me being associated with media, right? But then you look at like personal branding. Now, personal branding today is just as important as actually owning something associated with media. Because at the end of the day, I mean, this as a business guy, at the end of the day, if you want to open up new deals, new opportunities, you want to do stuff with guys from the UAE or from US or whatever it might be, they do screenings on you. They research you. They make sure that they're not wasting their time, And if they can see all this information and it's easily available and it's available on Google or whatever it might be, it makes it a lot easier for you to open up doors for yourself as well. You also come across more credible, you come across in the right association. So there's a lot of value in personal branding, but at the same time, you also have to be very authentic in what you share. So for example, you can't go out there. I mean, you've seen stories before where people go out and say, I'm a Forex trader, but I'm the youngest millionaire in South Africa. And then 5-10 years later, you have scams or, all these different things on your name. So you have to be cautious about stuff like that. You have to be authentic when you speak about things. So if you do something, it's great for the media to know about it, but it has to be authentic. And authenticity is the most important thing.
Now, when you speak, you talk about mentors. Before the mentors, what books have influenced you in some of the most positive ways?
Yeah, I think...
In any books?
For me, like when I was really young, it was The Monk That Stole His Ferrari. Rich Dad Poor Dad helped me a lot. Like I love the whole concept of that whole mindset is just brilliant. And then as I grew up, I think I started to follow a lot more other self-development books. I became fans of certain motivational speakers. I even started looking more towards video content than actual reading books. I mean, reading books is still the pinnacle. It's still your billionaires read books, but there's also value in video content.
Yeah.
So people like Eric Thomas, for example, I just love the concept of you remind me of an Eric Thomas. You really do, with that whole passion and but I love the whole concept of using different media outlets and using different media platforms to be able to build your mindset. So gone are the days where people have the attention span to read books. It's fine. You have audio tapes, you have YouTube, you have video platforms. So it's brilliant. I think it's a nice time for the generation right now.
And then how then did you sort of spot who is a mentor or who you could potentially reach out to as a mentor? Because I think in the past, and I think we mentioned this particular element and part on this show consistently, because it's very integral, and I think you're going to keep hearing it over and over again. How do you spot or differentiate between that's someone who just inspires me and great, but that's someone I need to actually go and reach out to because I need to have them on as a mentor?
So I think, and I spoke about it as well in my book, my first book, it's very important that you identify two different things when you're looking at mentors. So first, you identify people that inspire you, people that you look up to, people that you would be very happy and actually not, I won't say competent, but like you'd be very comfortable being happy with living their type of lifestyle or what they do. So you look at that type of association. And then the second thing you look at is you look at the different types of mentors. So it's great finding people that are brilliant. If they're all business people, you're going to be a brilliant business guy, but you still need to work on the other aspects of yourselves when it comes to, your own personal self. So for example, you need to have a life mentor, you need to have a love mentor, you need to have a business mentor, you need to have, a kind of a mix and balance where you have people teaching you various aspects of yourself. And that's the fundamental of self-development. It's not about improving one thing. It's about improving yourself holistically, So I spoke about that a lot in Empire, where we spoke about the fact that, mentors are key, but you must have various different types of mentors.
Now, so when he talks about the fact that he spoke about it in Empire is the book that you authored.
Yes.
Beautiful book. But I love the branding on the book, and we're going to talk a bit about branding because you're very knowledgeable in that space. Why'd you write the book?
So the book was, it was always something I wanted, yeah? Like I've always, ever since I was really young, I walked into exclusive books, and you'd walk into CNA and you'd see Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad there, and you'll see all these different, beautiful, amazing authors that are killing it. And I used to always feel like I'm going to be there. I'm going to put my book right next to Robert Kiyosaki's book one day, watch. And I always had that mindset, bro, like since I was a young kid, And then I wrote my book at 19, sent it through to publishers, and every single publisher declined me. I think I got like 24 declines or rejections. And it just makes you think, and I really was demotivated at that stage. At 19, I thought, what, maybe this isn't for me, And then I went back, I spent some time looking at my book. I listened to a lot of their constructive criticism. A lot of them said, look, you're too young. Like, what do you know about self-development? How can we allow a 19-year-old to have authority in terms of a book? You know what I mean? So there was all these different conversations, but I think that also came from the whole aspect of how South Africa looks at age, So age is still such a fundamental factor when we're deciding who takes office, who does this, who becomes the CEO. So back then at 19, I was very disappointed. I was demotivated. But then I went back, made a few changes to my book, and then I self-published, exactly what DJ Spoo taught us to do. Yeah. And that opened up doors for me. And at the end of the day, I got deals from self-publishing that allowed me to become a bestseller in South Africa. And it's stuff like that just opens up your mindset to, there's not only one pathway to do something. There's 5 different pathways, and you don't have to always go in the one that everyone uses, because sometimes the other pathway actually takes you further. And I really do believe in that.
Now, if there's one thing that consistently peaks out from you is this amazing leadership character. What, in your view, is the makeup of a great leader?
I think a great leader, there's a lot of characteristics that you must have. I think one thing is that you have to, and the most fundamental ones I would say, is you have to be transparent with your constituency.
Yeah.
People need to understand that who you are, what you stand for, and you need to be completely truthful about it, you know? Another thing is that you have to be able to be accountable for your actions. But away from that, I believe that those things are so easily available in South Africa. As much as, you know, we have issues with politics, there's people out there that are competent, they are accountable, they are transparent, you know? They can take up leadership roles, but the things that really make a difference, and you look at Dubai, and use Dubai as an example, the UAE, you look at their government over the last 20 years, yeah? Now, let's look at us, like we've been out of democracy, out of apartheid for about 20 something years. They've been building Dubai for the last 20 years, right? Let's look at Dubai now and look at South Africa now. Their leadership quality and what they've done as a leadership group of, sheikhs or whatever it might be is incredible. And the whole fundamental blueprint behind it was about innovation and being the best out there no matter what, and they did whatever it takes to do that. So I think at the end of the day, you have to have innovation. If you're someone who can innovate, an area that you come in, whatever it is, you don't have to be the biggest leader. You can lead in small spaces. And I believe in whatever environment you come in, if you can turn that environment and transfer energy to it, make it more innovative, make it better, improve it in some way, where it's sustainable growth, not and sustainable differences. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's important, because what South Africa does is we have this, it's like a system, like a conveyor belt, It's like a leader comes in, copies the same model that the previous guy did, does the same thing, shakes the same hands, pays the same bills, does the same, just increases maybe the number of what he does. Yeah. But it's never innovation. It's hardly innovation. And we need more of that in South Africa. And I think we can look at countries like the UAE, we can look at countries, even in the Netherlands, how they even look after entrepreneurship is so important. So there's a lot that we can learn from other leaders, but I think leadership involves a lot. As much as transparency and all of that comes into play, innovation is key.
Do you have a standout South African leader or leaders, anyone? Actually, let me not say leader, because then it creates a hierarchical structure. But who are some of the leaders that sort of come to you and you're like, wow, man, this is Black excellence. This is South African excellence. This is...
I sighed so many times because it's such a difficult question, bro. It's so difficult. So I think there's different levels in terms of how you associate leadership and how you associate these leaders, right? So if you're talking about leaders that are currently in, government or whatever it might be, there's a few, There's a few people that are really progressive, that are doing great stuff. Even people that have left government, like for example, I'm still good friends with Musi Maimane. I love his mindset. I think he's a brilliant guy when it comes to business, and he understands business, he understands people. He's a very, very smart guy, right? Away from the political space. He's a very, very intelligent guy. And he has leadership. He has the leadership qualities that you need in a leader, And then you have a lot of our young guys. And the young guys is what I'm really passionate about when we talk about leadership. Because as much as, we have our ministers and we have presidents and stuff, that's great. They've been there. We've already spoken about them. The young guys are what's really cool. Because you look at guys like Indomiso Hadebe, who was on One Day Leader Season 1. Today he's sitting in, World Economic Forum, doing stuff like this. He's a brilliant, brilliant guy. Taking someone like that, putting him in as a Minister of Finance one day, I think we would benefit greatly in South Africa. Yeah. You have leadership like, for example, Catherine Constantinides. When you talk about environment and, you talk about looking after sustainability, you take someone like that and put them in a ministry that's associated with sustainability, you're winning, And we have these individuals and we have to start transitioning them from keeping them outside of government and start putting them in. And I think it's very, very important that we start working on that as well. Because when we get young, competent leaders like that coming in, South Africa will change completely.
Do you sort of look at, when you sort of look at the South African landscape, right, there's this conversation that says, well, South Africans are lazy, they're entitled, they don't want to work. What's your thinking and thoughts around that? Because I was sort of asked that question earlier, and I thought, because I know how passionate you are, particularly about youth.
Yeah.
I'd go as far as calling you a youth champion, because your heart, the youth is at the cusp of everything you sort of believe in. What would your thinking be to a question like that?
I
Or a
think
statement like that?
Look,
rather?
I think there's some truth in it, and it's not based on the fact that people are not competent or they don't have the ability to be the best out there. South African people are very talented. They're very smart, and we look at them in different spheres, and you can understand that those people are really intelligent at what they do. You look at young people that are disrupting the market in various sectors. They're doing great jobs in terms of doing that. But what they're also doing is that a lot of them are leaving South Africa and growing their businesses in the US and UAE. And I'm coming down to the fundamental issue here is that it's not their fault. It's because you grow up in an environment where it's acceptable for you to be lazy. It's acceptable. The standard is just above lazy, So you just, as long as you're above lazy, you feel like you're doing a great job. Now you look at other countries where that standard's much higher. It's leadership. It's government. It's state. It's even your civil society that plays a role. In determining the standard of where we should look at young people and even, South African citizens and what they should be able to do. And that's why you look at it. I mean, at the end of the day, like, there's nothing wrong with it, but you look at guys from Zambia, guys from Zimbabwe, guys from Nigeria, guys from Tanzania. They come to South Africa with a pipe dream, bro. Like, they come here trying to live the US dream in South Africa. And they do it, bro. And they do it in 1 year. They do it in 6 months. They do it in 1.5 years. And they do stuff that South African people take 7 or 8 years or sometimes never achieve. They manage to do it in a year. And that's just because of the standard that they expected to be on. So their work ethic is obviously a lot higher. And we can learn from that. I love the concept of learning from each other. There's always something you can learn from another person. So if we're looking at what these guys are doing really well, we must look at their blueprint and say, okay, cool. How many hours a day are they working? Are they working 6 hours a day and clocking out? Or are they doing 24 hours or 20 hours and sleeping for the rest of it? And we need to look at stuff like that because that will encourage South Africans to understand what their blueprint should also be.
So what in your view does it take to win? Win at whatever. I almost said win at life, but win in business.
I think remember, winning is very subjective, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many different ways on how you can win these days. Before it was just financial business. Now it's like you can grow a huge social media platform or you can have a huge social media following, and that can give you sustainable income where you'll make more money than a CEO from a company if you're smart about it, So it's like how you have to define winning in accordance to what's relevant to you or what's important to you, But I think winning at the end of the day is nowadays, I think it's more about setting an ultimate goal and doing whatever you can on a daily basis to get closest to that ultimate goal. And once you achieve that ultimate goal, what do you do for everyone else post that? But getting to a stage of winning is a lot of work. Let's be honest, it's not easy. As much as people want to make it sound like winning is this easy process, you have to be a holistic person. You have to grow yourself in your personal branding. You have to, have all those meetings. You have to shake a lot of hands. You have to put in the time. You have to develop yourself. You have to improve yourself. So I believe winning comes down to self-development more than anything else. When you keep on improving yourself, new opportunities open up for you. You meet better people, you meet better opportunities, you meet better lifestyles. So it's all about when you improve, then your life improves.
If you're listening to this, you could rewind that part. That is the process. And I love how you broke down that answer. And I think if you're listening, just leave us your comment on this, because I think you touched on an amazing process in terms of winning and how you sort of broke it down, right? But, and you talk about, and I like how you sort of touch on, there's a process. It's not as easy as it seems. Dude, who doesn't look like anything. You don't look like anything's difficult. You don't smell like anything is difficult. You don't present yourself to yourself like anything is difficult. But I guess that's the fallacy of entrepreneurship, because everything at a distance looks celebratory. That English, if I got it wrong, you'll forgive me. But everything looks excellent. It looks brilliant. It looks great. What has been your lowest moment, or some of your lowest moments in business?
I think, so before I get to that, right, I think it's a very important point that you pointed out. And I think it would be silly for us not to emphasize it on this podcast, is that the biggest issue I have with social media, well, two issues I have. First one is as a person who plays in the marketing and public relations space, about 90% of what you see on social media is not really 100% authentic. Right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So
That is very true.
okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, unfortunately, we have not got to a stage in South Africa where young people have been taught the mindset of self-development and understand the strength of having a strong mental state, right? So what they do is they go onto social media, they compare themselves. Comparison is the biggest issue. They compare themselves to these highlight reels that most of the time do not even exist. Or you're seeing one great moment in 750 failures, you saw one success. Now you think this person's life, or you're accommodating and comparing this person's life to a highlight reel, and you're hoping to have that every single day. Now that's a grounds for disappointment, right? Because no one has 150 wins in a day. No one does. Not even Elon Musk. No one has that. So these guys are getting pressure on themselves. They're young, they're putting a lot of pressure, stress, and a lot of them are, committing suicide. A lot of them are getting health issues. And we need to be able to emphasize the fact that social media is not there for comparison purposes. It is there to motivate you. Like you need it. How you spend your time on social media is so important. What you put out on social media is so important, And we know what does well on social media, but also what's the real purpose of social media? Are we going to follow what everyone wants us to post up, Like at the end of the day, bro, let's be honest, right? If I go and I post up a picture of myself in a new Lamborghini, right? And then I post myself next to maybe the CEO of Huawei, and I'm shaking his hand. I did a deal with Huawei. Let's just say I did a deal with Huawei, but I'm standing in front of a car that maybe I rented or I'm using for a week or whatever. I will get 25 times more likes on that car photo than what I will closing a deal with Huawei, with the Huawei CEO. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's true.
And it just comes down to how we look at viewerships. Even you look at YouTube, the platforms or the viewership that you get on certain videos are always based on luxury, showing this type of. Everyone wants to just look at easy things. No one wants to look at things that challenge you or stimulate your mind. So as young people, I want young people not to put pressure on themselves, because when you look at that guy who has 2 million followers and is verified on Instagram and shows how he just bought himself a new Maserati or McLaren, or now moved into a 25 million house, like he had a lot of failures through that process, He had a lot of no's, he had a lot of emotion involved. Everyone does. So you need to understand that you're looking at people's highlight reels and you're not looking at their life on a day-to-day basis. I think that's so important as well.
I like that, man. I like that. But have you ever suffered or have to deal with comparing yourself with other people?
Yeah.
How'd you break up?
When I was
how'd
younger.
you break out of that, so that you now get to this? Well, Mr. Minty, there's only one of me. I'm confident in me, and I will not hold anything back from celebrating anyone else because it takes nothing away from me.
Bro, there's so much to this topic. So I think first things first. You did ask about failures that I've had in my life.
Yeah.
I've had failures where I sat down wanting to do massive deals with people, and I've been let down completely. Like I remember when I was 20 or 21, I actually cried. I got home, cried, and I spent the whole day in my room because I was trying to do this mining deal. And obviously when you're young, you think, look, it's an easy process. And these guys hustled me completely from the deal. So I was excluded. They did everything, but I never had any paperwork or anything to get involved, So I cried. I was upset about it. I've been in situations where you think a business is going to do really, really well. You do market research, you do all of these things, you brand it well, but it's just not the South African market. It's not suited for the South African market. As much as you did market research, there's something that you missed out on as an entrepreneur. And those are the things that really get to you as an entrepreneur, because it's like, it will work, it's beautiful, it's going to expand, but you might have just missed one small little thing. Yeah. And that one small thing can make the biggest difference. So I've been in those situations where now I'm even more detailed. Now I'll take that extra step, make sure this is perfect and it's going to work. And I'll make sure I do whatever it takes to make sure it works, So I've had failures. I've had moments where you're emotional, you're crying, you feel like, I'm done with this stuff, as an entrepreneur. And then you have days where you can't see yourself as anything else but an entrepreneur for the rest of your life, because it's beautiful moments. And that's just the roller coaster that you're on of entrepreneurship. And that's what it is, And then I think the second thing was also about the whole idea of, what was it again?
I think I'm lost. Because what keeps permeating, and I guess everyone watching this is sort of peeking out, right? What keeps permeating as you speak is this level of excellence, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll get to the question that you need to answer now, but what drives that? Because you sort of spoke about people being happy with just doing the ordinary, but you're not doing the ordinary. You keep raising the bar, right? And I think, why are you raising the bar, right? Why are you raising this bar? Why is the level of excellence this high? Where does that come from?
I think, okay, so I think, that's a very important question to ask, because the thing is, it's not always there. Let's be honest. It's not always there. It's there. If it can be there 90% of the time, where your mindset is right and you have the right morals, values, consistency, beautiful, brilliant for you. But it's not always there. And I think it's important for us to also speak about this. And I don't know if you experience it. I experience it. 90% of my support on social media, in public, maybe even 95%, is all positive. It's good. I get that 95% positivity, people trust in me, respect in me, and I love that. And I really am humbled by that. But you get that 5%, the 5% of the haters or the naysayers, and that stuff gets to you. Like, as much as we're human beings and we're strong mentally and we we develop ourselves, whatever, like sometimes that 5% gets a lot, So I think it's important that we also emphasize that, and I'm sure you also go through that as well. Like, you'll have that one or two, comments or...
No, it shakes you up. Yeah. Sometimes, because sometimes it's we can't divorce ourselves from being human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you get into spaces and you're shaken up. And I think that's the biggest part of this podcast, which is why I think when we tell guests to come to the podcast, just be you.
Yeah.
If your phone rings, answer it.
Yeah.
Sit, engage, because it must be as natural and as real as possible, because we don't want to divorce the people from
reality,
being human beings, because after listening to this podcast, we're still human beings. Doing this podcast, we're still human beings, right? And I think that's the biggest experience we sort of want to have out. Now, I'd be amiss if I close off the podcast without touching on this, right? The importance of building your personal brand, because you've been building it, right? What is the importance of building your own personal brand, or what is a personal brand?
So I think, so a personal brand in my mind is how you are seen on social platforms, on the internet, how you are spoken about by people, by peers, by also mentors. Your personal brand is practically your value in the world. Like, if we have to look at things like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Black Mirror before, but like they have this mindset where the world's going to move towards a social media platform where people are based not on their phones, but based on who they are as people. So the more you like someone, the higher their value becomes. And that's exactly what a personal brand actually is. So in the future, we're going to have that without a doubt. But you can even see it right now in your personal brands, where you have to make sure that your value is high, and your value comes in a place of opening up doors for yourself. And those are all the benefits of having a high value. So if you have a high value, you'll be able to have access to more people. You'll be able to knock on doors faster. You'll be able to close deals faster, because that understanding of who you are, that credibility of who you are, what you stand for, what's your morals, what's your values, it's so easily found on social media and on the internet that you don't have to go and speak about it in a meeting. You don't have to spend 7 months getting to know someone. They already get to know you through your social platforms, through the internet, through word of mouth, through power of association. So they already know who you are. It's just now building that relationship, and I think that's important. That's why a personal brand plays such an important role. And then obviously when it comes to accreditation and recognition, like, people see value in stuff like that, So at the end of the day, I mean, if you want to really win massive things in your life, or if you want to really reach the highest levels in terms of growth or whatever, you have to invest in developing your personal brand. And that's why we encourage a lot of like your business people, because a lot of them spend so much of time in corporate, but then they don't spend time developing their personal brands, And I think it's very important, even for your everyday entrepreneur. I think it's very, very important.
As we wrap up, what inspires you?
I think for me, a lot of things inspire me. My mom inspires me. I'm just on another level when it comes to my mom, my dad, like the stuff, just their support. Like, look, I know my parents came from more of like a traditional background. So they don't have that idea of massive like innovation, but the support was so important when I was young, knowing that I could tell them, look, I want to actually start up a clothing business, and for them to say, yeah, go and do it. Like, we believe in you, just the we believe in you thing. That's all that you want. I'm inspired by our young people in South Africa. I think we have incredible young people. We have incredible people in Africa. And you look at what's going to happen in Africa over the next 10 years. I believe you're going to get so many new like billionaires coming from South Africa, and they're all going to be young, and I can see it. I'm inspired by my ultimate goal, which is something I really believe in. I really want to impact the lives of millions of people all around the world positively. And I think that's what I really want to do. And after that, I believe in the concept of humanitarian work. I believe in the concept of giving back. At the end of the day, we are so privileged to meet the people that we've met. We've had opportunities to grow. We've sat in rooms where, I looked at a photo of us on Instagram. The one photo I have on my Instagram is of you and I speaking in front of like 2,000 people in Pretoria, bro. Like, it's moments like
just
that.
Just before Robert Kiyosaki. Don't forget that part.
So it's stuff like that. It's memories like that. It's moments like that change your life. I've learned things in that moment that I'll never learn anywhere else. And it will be silly for me to keep that and go to my grave with it instead of sharing it with other young people. So It's all about sustainability. It's about legacy. It's about how can we take what we've learned and give it to the next generation so they become 1,000,000 times better than us. And that's how I look at it.
And your one-liner to any young person, young entrepreneur, individual listening to this podcast?
For me, it's simple. It's just, you know what, you're going to hear 1,000 no's before you get one yes. Don't give up. Literally don't give up. You could be one yes away from becoming the most successful person ever. Be consistent, be disciplined, be persistent, break down doors. If people don't want to hear you, force them to hear you. Social media is a beautiful platform. Social media has built the people that have never had voices before. Today have the biggest voices because of social media, because of the power of the internet, and looking at what's happening now with the metaverse and everything, there's so much of opportunity for young people. So go out there, never give up. Don't let someone tell you your value. Determine your own value.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is the bar being raised with Zareef Minty. Episode 13. Leave us your comments. Follow him on social media. His handles have been popping up throughout this whole entire video. But if you're listening to this on podcast, his bio is on the blurb. He's an amazing, amazing entrepreneur. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, bro.
Small Business Podcast. Share it. That's it for today. If you like that podcast, show us some love and share it with your network. Once again, follow us on all of our social media platforms, #JoinUsForTea, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Shout out to Joe Public for making this possible. Remember, Sisonke Rikaufela and Foster Njengomzegezege.